This episode is brought to you by Weldwood Marketing, Buzzshot, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, Hive, the race to save time, and Patreon supporters like you. Cogs by Clockwork Dog is an easy-to-use software-hardware platform for running interactive events, including escape rooms, haunts, and other immersive experiences. Their plug-and-play hardware seamlessly integrates with their software, so you can create a game with any type of puzzle logic, lighting, and sound cues without having to write a single line of code. New this year is the Multi-Master, which combines the Digital Master, Sensor Master, and DC Master into one. It has all the features of those boxes and a new one. Now you can plug any Matrix keypad into it and program the logic in Cogs. It's great for doors, safes, and phone puzzles. And it's perfect as a drop-in replacement for a lot of different Fright Props equipment. It's a great fit for small games, haunts, and it's a more cost-effective way to get started with Cogs. Follow them on Instagram at Cogs App to find out when it drops. Get the Cogs starter set for only $130 with free shipping to the USA. This bundle is normally valued at $257. You can learn more and purchase your starter set at cogs.show. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or Facebook at Cogs App for the latest news. Link and details in the show notes.
Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guests are Neil Patrick Harris and Jonathan Bayme. Neil is an iconic performer on stage and screen and patron celebrity of escape rooms and immersive experiences. Jonathan is a maker of beautiful and magical things through his company Theory 11. Together, Neil and Jonathan collaborated to create the tabletop escape games Box 1 and Box 2. Welcome, Jonathan, and welcome back, Neil.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled to have you back, Neil, because when we had you on the first time, I didn't think there was going to be a Box 2. We were a little bit unsure. And so I'm so thrilled. It came out. It's amazing. And I remember on that episode, you were like, you guys have to get Jonathan on the podcast. And so we made it all happen. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. We're very excited. Box 2 was a long time in process, mostly because we were just anxious to see how Box 1 performed. And we weren't really so business-minded that it was like, with success, we must make more, and we must do it quickly because we must ride the wave. So we were just very happy with the execution of the first one. And so we spent a lot of time just in conversation about what could Box 2 be.
We're going to get to Box 2 and cover all sorts of things, but we want to begin with exploring a little bit about this collaboration, about Jonathan and your background, and build into the work that you have done together.
Jonathan, let's start with you. What is Theory 11?
It's a lot of things. It's not what I planned to start with.
What is in life?
To answer the question, I kind of have to rewind even further. My original goal when I was 5 years old was to be a famous magician. So Theory 11 started as a message board for magicians to communicate. I was a little kid growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, and I had never met another magician in person, ever. So the internet became my means of meeting and communicating with magicians by way of this message board, transitioned into a instructional magic website where people could buy and learn magic tricks online. So think of it like iTunes for magic tricks, where people can watch incredible magic tricks being performed by the person that invented that magic trick. And if they want to learn that trick, they can purchase a instructional video that teaches you step-by-step how to do that. And in the process of that, we met incredible magicians from across the world that we've worked with over the past 18 years. We also started designing other products that I became obsessed with, printing and letterpressing and foil stamping and design. And that led us to the world of playing cards. Playing cards led to games, and games led to Box One. That's the shortest summary of it in a nutshell.
Okay, so how did you guys find yourselves in each other's orbits? Like, how did you meet?
I love going to see immersive experiences, whether they be circus themed or magic themed or escape themed. And so in New York City, I had heard about a show that was performing at the Nomad Hotel. The now shuttered Nomad Hotel, and the Nomad was great. It was very McKittrick Hotel, but an actual hotel. It was super cool. And I had heard that there was a magic show that was a small sort of pop-up that was on the second floor in like a ballroom. And in order to get a ticket, you had to find then a girl that was in a hallway and she had playing cards. You had to show her a playing card in order to, like, so it all felt very speakeasy and exciting. And so I thought, I want to go to this thing. And I wound up going. A magician named Dan White was and is the magician in residence, no longer there, but still doing the show. And I sat down and this guy came up and said, "Hi, nice to meet you. What brings you to the show?" I said, "I like magic and this seems cool." And he said, "My name's Jonathan. I'm the producer of the show. I created it and I hope you like it." And the show was great. And Jonathan can speak more to the show, which is also wonderful because it speaks to his Willy Wonka-like success and his continuation to make a single thing and then have it be better than expected and have a longer life than expected. And after the show, I obviously loved it, as did thousands of people and Jimmy Fallon and everyone. Not that night, but I sat and then I asked Jonathan like 50 questions of all sorts. Not how is the magic done, because I know a lot about how the magic is done, but I was more interested in how did the lights go up and down and what was the inspiration behind this? And we geeked out in magic speak and we just became fast friends. And from that, we just kept hanging out. I was like, oh, I found a friend. And little did I know he'd be my bestie.
This was also opening night, I should add, of the show.
Right.
It was 10 years ago.
No pressure.
Yeah, 10 years ago next month. The show, it felt like one of those things in life that will be what you make it become, where if we treated this like a little fun side project, it was going to be a little fun side project for myself and Dan White and other group of magicians that were creating this. But we had felt like we had this opportunity in New York City. For those listening to this that aren't in New York City, the Nomad was, I don't know what the right word for it. It just had a special magic, pun intended, to it, where the team that was from 11 Madison Park, #1 rated restaurant in the world, opened up this hotel across Madison Square Park.
Will Guidara.
Yeah, Will Guidara, Daniel Hume, the best of the best in the hospitality field. And Theory 11, our company, was consulting for 11 Madison Park. That's how that show came about. And Will Guidara said, "Hey, we're opening up this hotel across Madison Square Park. Can I show you? It's still in construction." And we were really busy and stressed working on things for the restaurant. So we very reluctantly said, yes, we'll walk across the park with you and go see this hotel you're building. And then that led to him saying, we've been trying these jazz nights on this extra room on the second floor of the hotel. And it's fun, but it's just a jazz night. And there's a lot of those in New York City. And Will Guidara had a long history in magic. His father, Frank Guidara, used to take him to magic shows, specifically David Copperfield. And Will is sort of like a real life Willy Wonka as well. He always tries to instill principles of magic, I would say, not on purpose of like magic themed, but just instilling moments of wonder and surprise and delight in everything that they do. Will's book, which is now like a best-selling New York Times book called Unreasonable Hospitality, talks all about these things. And so he said, well, you guys have any ideas on something we could do in this room? Because we don't really have any thoughts on this. So we said, oh, yeah. So we spent 6 to 8 months designing this show purpose-built for that room at the Nomad. And the whole goal was to do one show a week on Friday nights. And during rehearsals, it was like the second or third rehearsal, the GM of the Nomad came up to me and said, Jimmy Fallon is eating dinner downstairs. You may invite him up to see the rehearsal. I was like, what do you say to that? Because like the show was really rough. This was far before like opening night, like a month before Neil saw it. So I made the executive decision to do two things. One, say yes. And we invited Jimmy, who was there with the Lonely Island guys, eating dinner downstairs, to see our rehearsal, which was not meant for human consumption. We had like friends and family of the hotel there. And then two, I made the executive decision not to tell anyone else on the team that this was happening, because A, they would have vetoed it, and B, they would have been really nervous. So I remember Dan, who I've been close friends with since we were 15 years old, walked on stage, immediately made dead eye contact with Jimmy Fallon, did dead eye contact with me in the back of the room with like demon eyes. What the fuck is happening? What are you doing? And I was just like, it's going to be great. You're good. And it worked out. And that was a great rehearsal. And that led to us doing the Tonight Show, which we've now done 14 times. So that's what led to the show. And that's what, led to Neil. And I think Neil, you and I connected early on, not just about magic, but also about design and like print craft. And Neil's interested in so many different things, as am I. I want to know how 3D printing works, and how about laser etching and engraving, and Neil's got all these things at his house now. So I think we have a lot of similar passions.
This is what I love about Jonathan, and this is what I'm just really turned on by creatively, is finding a room, being brought into a thing like, what can you make with this, and then going for it and making a thing that's unique and creative and singular, and then seeing what happens, right? Planning for it to be successful, but not needing it to be a success. And in doing so, the authenticity and the creativity are so aligned that it is a massive success. And it had sold out for months, and they only sold tickets as pairs, so it was like a date night. And then when the Nomad closed down, it moved to a different place, and it's continued to sell out. When there was a pandemic, they just pivoted and made the boxed version of Magician at the Nomad, which is one of the best box magic experiences that was out there.
We're still doing those, actually.
Like really good. It ties into the quality of their tactile materials. But I love all of them. At the Nomad Hotel, they used to do Halloween nights, and randomly they would just hire JB and his team to take rooms within the hotel, and they'd theme them out to be these wild rooms that you would go into. Some scary, some sexy, some mysterious, just for the one night. It's a proper one-off. I love that stuff. That's why we're doing this,
Since we met recording this show a few years ago, Neil, I've met a whole bunch of people through you. And there are two defining characteristics of every single person that I've met through you. And one is that everyone has been very kind. And the second is that they're all really good at something specific, usually something like really specific. So I'm not surprised to hear this, because I also know that once you get interested in something, you really want to know how it works, which kind of leads to our next question. What are you both looking for in a magic performance? What's exciting you at the moment, like right now in 2025?
For me, I think there are limited numbers of magic principles, right? 11 of them, hence Theory 11.
Yeah.
But there's an appearance, a disappearance, a transposition, these kind of things. So once you know how magic is done, I'm less interested in being fooled, and I'm much more interested in context, in how magic principles are used to further the story, to further the creative narrative. But even less about the end result, I'm interested in how the magic principles can sway an audience. And that involves tempo. Darren Brown does it really well. British magician, super, super popular in the UK, sells out on the West End all the time. He's had David Copperfield level of success in the UK. And he's such an actor, and he's a mentalist, but he contextualizes everything. And he'll take old principles, and he'll make a new routine with it, combining new principles, so that if you think you know how it's done, you're also fooled. But they're respecting the audience. Long-winded answer to your question is, I think the audience deserves to be treated with respect. And magic is often an art that is marginalized because there's so many marginal magicians, right? There's birthday party magicians, and your weird uncle that like always at Thanksgiving wants to show you a card trick. It's often something not unlike escape rooms. A lot of people have opinions about escape rooms.
This is one of the many things that I think escape rooms and magic have in common.
Exactly. And I think it's important to respect that the audiences are smart. And so if you're going to do a card trick, great. But then what's your next trick? And how do those connect? If you look at someone like Derek Delgadio, who did an amazing show called In and of Itself, and that you can actually watch, I think, online.
It's on Hulu. If you haven't seen it, it's spectacular.
It's spectacular. And Derek is one of the best around. He's one of the nicest guys, and he's deeply committed to the intention behind it. And so he tells his story through these magical feats, but he's not pretending to be like a magician with a top hat doing magic tricks. And in turn, you're emotionally affected. And the magic for you is not only where did that thing go, but like, why am I crying? And I think magic has that power. Weirdly, in the same way that I think escape rooms have that same opportunity to immerse yourself in a real world scenario and allow for moments that are so cinematic in certain ways and singular that you tell everyone about it and you'll remember it for the rest of your days.
I agree with everything Neil said, ditto. My perspective on magic is a lot of it for me was developed from a branding perspective and branding lens. Because when I was a kid, I saw such stark contrast between me seeing David Copperfield when I was 5 years old. And this was David Copperfield in the 90s.
At the height of his power.
Yeah, Dreams and Nightmares tour. If anyone listening has ever saw it, he was flying. It was like craziest shit ever on stage. And that's what I saw. That was my baseline, first impression of magic. So I don't know like what the right analogy is there, but like that was the first
pure spectacle.
The biggest, yeah, it's like I don't know, like it's the first movie someone ever sees. It's like the greatest, coolest movie. And then I went from that to wanting to learn magic and be a magician. And the only tools and exposure I had to magic was the very like cheesy, kitschy image of magic that Neil was alluding to. Birthday party magicians and like doves and canes and top hats. I was very interested in this and very opinionated on it, even from the beginning. So everything that I was doing at Theory 11 in the early days was how do we rebrand magic? I want everyone to see it the way I see it, as a intellectual, very cerebral, very sophisticated, mysterious art form that is not how the general public sees it. And then over the years, when I started doing more and more product creation, products that Theory 11 produces are all things that really codify that elegant upscale image that's even in box 1, box 2 of elevating this art form that just really desperately, in my opinion, needed to be elevated. When I first started working with David Copperfield, I remember I had talked to him on the phone. He was about to do like Good Morning America or something. And we were talking about what is he going to say and what is he going to do. He was performing something. I don't even remember what the trick was. But I remember he called me right after, about 3 minutes after it aired. And we were going to talk about what we thought about that performance. And we both hated it. And the reason why we hated it was David did great and he did his normal thing. It was perfect. The only reason was because they used little animated GIFs of freaking doves in canes and, wands as the lower third on it. And we hated that, David and I, so much that ruined it. Like that spoiled the entire thing for us. Looking back on it, it was mixing the two things that to me were oil and water that shouldn't be mixed.
Top hats and coattails.
Yeah, with the ultimate cool, badass image of magic that we were really trying. I remember I've learned a lot from David of how he's been specific over the years with how his brand has been placed and who he's attached to. And even like from a PR capability of how do you market magic and elevate magic.
So you've built an amazing escape room, but are players finding you online? This is Jake from Weldwood Marketing. We help escape room owners rank higher on Google, drive bookings with Google ads and social media ads, and create websites that turn visitors into paying players. Stop losing customers to competitors. Let's escape the marketing maze together.
So, David, I have a small business myself, and marketing is really tricky. There's so many aspects of it. And one of the things that I think is really cool is that Weldwood Marketing, they do everything.
I mean, PG, your small business has gotten by on your charisma and the fact that you're good at what you do, but you just talk real good. And that is not something that every business can rely on. And Weldwood Marketing can help. The services that Weldwood Marketing provides are the kinds of things that can help a business that is stuck in sales ruts. Whether we're talking optimizing to surface better on search, making your website function properly so that people actually complete their bookings, and they can even help you figure out how to talk to corporate clients and try to pull them in. All of these services are ways that you can improve your bottom line. And I think that is something that's worth investigating.
Yeah. Weldwood Marketing is a one-stop shop for all of your marketing needs.
All right, Repod listeners, we love the escape room and immersive industry so much. We're doing something we almost never do at Weldwood Marketing. We're offering discounts. 15% off marketing services for your first 3 months and $750 off escape room websites. We wanted to make sure you have something special for being a fan of Repod. Go to weldwoodmarketing.com/Repod to schedule a discovery call with me, Jake, and let's take a full assessment of your online presence and find out ways that we can unlock some more money for you and your business.
Links and details in the show notes.
Let's talk a little bit more about Theory 11 as we start to build towards talking about Box 2 and Box 1. Theory 11 is an interesting company that kind of has become known for a couple of different products. It's known for close-up magic tricks that you can purchase, a lot of card tricks, a lot of coin tricks, as well as online tutorials. But I think you're probably best known more broadly for making absolutely gorgeous, highly stylized playing cards, frequently in partnership with large brands ranging from Star Wars to the Beatles. One question that has been in the back of my mind every single time that I've ever looked at your website or products over the years is that with card magic, audiences seem like they get skeptical as soon as a deck of cards looks even slightly different from the traditional red-blue deck of bicycles. So how did beautiful and strange playing cards become a core part of a magic company's business?
I love this question. So circling back to what I said earlier about everything is, to me, in magic about branding and storytelling. And I thought, how do we make magic look cool and sexy and modern and sophisticated if magicians still use playing cards that have baby angels riding a bicycle on the back of them? That's not cool and sexy and modern and sophisticated.
They're all black and white and gold foil and iridescent and
embossing and like crazy amounts of detail that look like someone spent 8 months to a year designing them because we spent 8 months to a year designing them. And the whole original goal was for them to be sold by and used by magicians. And we thought they're beautiful and they're elegant. Magicians will use those because they're higher quality than normal playing cards, the way they fan and spread and shuffle, durability, things like that. So that was the whole original goal. We realized that a lot of non-magicians, muggles, if you will, started using and buying and collecting these cards.
because they're beautiful.
Yeah, and it's a great gift for like a birthday present, stocking stuffer that's $12 that looks beautiful. And so we realized a lot of families were buying these to play card games with their families. We realized a lot of poker players, blackjack players, and just design enthusiasts were buying and collecting these cards. And around that same time, I started seeing orders come through our website from a Jeffrey Abrams located in Santa Monica, California. And this was very soon after another Abrams named JJ had done a TED Talk talking about the mystery box. It was this beautiful box that JJ Abrams had gotten from his grandfather, who was an electronic salesman in New York City named Harry Kelvin. And he got him this box. He was going to open the box together and learn the magic tricks inside this box, which he got from Tannen's, which is still a magic store in New York City. And the short, terrible synopsis of the TED Talk was his grandfather passed away before they were ever able to open this box. So JJ has never opened this box. And he keeps it above his desk at Bad Robot, his production company, that he said it reminds him to instill a sense of mystery and wonder in everything that he does, from like the smoke monsters of Lost and Cloverfield to Star Wars, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, Lost. So I had seen that TED Talk very recently. I started seeing orders come through our website from a Jeffrey Abrams. And I was like, that is very close to a JJ Abrams name. And then I saw they were in Santa Monica. And then I eventually saw other orders come through. So I did what was probably borderline ethical behavior. And I was like, I got his email. I'm going to send him an email. So I sent JJ a message and I said, hi, I'm Jonathan. Like I said to Neil, I saw your orders come through your website. Hope it's okay at messaging you. Huge fan of your work. Would love to connect. And he said he loves magic. Obviously from the TED Talk, I knew that. Next time you're in LA, let me know because I would love to connect. I said, I'm actually going to be in LA next Thursday through Tuesday or whatever it was. If there's any time in that range. And he said, how about Saturday? I was completely full of shit. I was not going to LA. I booked the next flight from South Carolina, where I was 17 years old and living,
Wow.
to LA. I stayed at the closest hotel in Santa Monica where their office was, and I was there just for this. So we met then, connected then, immediately within 3 hours, started working on this product that we had created together. And we spent a year and a half making that product. It's called the Mystery Box. That's sold out now. You can't buy it. But that was the genesis of that. So through JJ, weaving the story around, through JJ, we started making Star Wars products. Star Wars products led us to doing Deadpool, Superman. And then that led to the world of music and the Beatles and Grateful Dead and Notorious B.I.G. and Elvis and all these other properties that we've been able to work with. In the very beginning, it was very difficult because these are obviously the most prestigious entertainment brands on the earth. So they're very protective over said brands. So everything that I had learned from designing these products from the very beginning for ourselves, I just poured those tools and knowledge into these brands. And how do we elevate the Beatles more than they already are? Like, really? How do you elevate Star Wars into being something that's even more so a collectible than it already has been? It's one of the biggest collectible merchandise products of all time. So that meant that instead of spending 6 months or 8 months designing these products, we spent like a year designing a deck of cards, which sounds ridiculous, I realize, out of my mouth, but we did. And that was what made them even more of a collectible. And that's what led us to, after about 11 years of unanswered emails, getting into stores like Target and Barnes & Noble and Walgreens and Kroger. And this month we just launched in CVS. So really getting it out there. But it all started with this vision of wanting to create things that we wanted to exist, that we thought should exist, and that perpetuated this image of magic and products. And I also just love anything like analog, because in a world where everyone's on their phone constantly and there's videos galore, I like anything that shows craftsmanship and that tactile sensation.
Same. I am going to push you though. Do magicians have a hard time using these decks?
Yes. In the beginning, yes. So in the very beginning, if you look back on message board posts circa 2008, magicians would say, Theory 11 cards, they're great. They look fantastic. You know, those aren't the cards that my audiences recognize, because they recognize what's sold in a local Target store or whatever, and that's bicycle cards, and that's only bicycle cards, or what's sold in the local Walmart stores. So me being a little 18-year-old with a chip on my shoulder, then reading that shit, I was like, all right, that just means we have to get in those stores. So now if you go to a Target store, there's red and blue bicycle cards, but there's also 12 facings of Theory 11 cards. So there's more visibility of our cards than there are of quote unquote ordinary playing cards. So that was the goal. It's like, how do we make our products into the new ordinary? How do we raise the bar, the standard of what exists, so that in the general public's mind, when you say playing cards or like nice playing cards, they actually picture our stuff and they've seen it in like a Barnes & Noble store or Target store or Walgreens store. Now that it's in 20,000 plus stores across America, people realize that this is a thing that exists. So it's not like, oh, what are those? That's weird. That's what it was 20 years ago, 18 years ago when we started. But now I hope there's increasingly some recognition that this is a product that exists and that playing cards aren't so binary.
Plus, with card magic, I think there was a period in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s where you were required to say, this is a normal deck of cards, right? And so it would need to be a blue or red bicycle deck. But I think you need to have what separates the good and mediocre card magicians are that good magicians can do a whole lot with any deck, right? Not a gimmicked deck of cards. And so that's the point, is that you could take any deck and do magic with it. And so why not use an elevated deck regardless?
And with a good magician, even if the deck is gimmicked, when they show it to you, it won't be.
Yeah, sure. And to be fair, if a magician's using our cards, most likely a magician's going to use a deck of Theory 11 cards like Artisans or Monarch, something like kind of simple, understated. They're not going to want a deck that takes away focus from whatever they're performing for obvious reasons. They're not going to use like a bedazzled deck of cards because that's going to distract your audience a little bit. I understand that, but also a huge amount of our fan base and collectors are people that use cards to play games with. You know, they're playing games with their family, they're playing poker with their friends. And so if you're picking up a deck of cards at your local Walgreens store to play poker tonight with your buddies, why not buy the Beatles deck that you identify with? It's your favorite band in the world, versus a deck that's $2 less or something that is just random weird design that was done 100 years ago.
Hey, escape room owners. Are you looking to level up your marketing and operations? BuzzShot is an all-in-one solution for powering business growth and improving the customer experience. They offer a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating awesome branded team photos, and they can streamline review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google Reviews, Facebook reviews, wherever people review. They got you covered. And they also offer integrations with Cogs. David, I know you feel very strongly about the importance of customer reviews when it comes to promoting escape rooms. You did a whole talk on it at Recon.
That's true, I did, and I still think that escape room players should do more to promote their favorite games on TripAdvisor and Yelp and Google reviews, because the people who know and care about these games the most should have loud voices in those spaces. And we're not the majority there. Buzzshot and their review monitor dashboard helps escape room companies reach out to their happy customers and encourage them to post those reviews. And personally, when I get those and I have the time and I love the game, I absolutely do click on them and go fill out those reviews because I want people to know about the games that I love so much. Another thing that the review monitor does is that it makes sure that you as an escape room owner see the reviews as they come in. So if someone had something less than stellar going on in their play and they wrote about it in their review, you have the opportunity to respond to it immediately and professionally.
Stella Adami from The Room in Berlin had this to say. Since using Buzzshot, we constantly receive at least 30% more TripAdvisor reviews than before.
Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. Repod listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod, that's REPOD, to learn more. Link and details in the show notes. Let's talk about your tabletop escape games. Specifically, we're going to dig into Box 2. For those who are interested in getting into the weeds on Box 1, we have an in-depth conversation with Neil all about it way back in Season 2, Episode 1. Box 1 was released to near universal acclaim, and years later, I'd still put it on my Mount Rushmore of tabletop escape games. How do you go about creating a follow-up to that game?
This was the most exciting part and the most thought-provoking part for us because I kept asking so many follow-up questions. Okay, you did Box 1, a game for one person. That's the conceit. And yet when you're playing it, it takes narrative shift, and then all of the one of Box 1 turns out to be sort of narcissism. The evil Neil Patrick Harris is claiming ownership of something, and you're trying to help dispel that.
Yeah, that evil Neil Patrick Harris is...
Well, that was that narrative we really wanted. We wanted cheesy, like super positive, happy, smiley Neil Patrick Harris at the beginning, and then it turns out that he's the evil mastermind.
You know I love it. And I also enjoy watching the way that you relish playing a bad guy.
Bad guys are the best parts for sure. We did that, and at the end of that is a video, a congratulatory video, where I thank the player for going on this journey, intentionally Willy Wonka style at the end when he's talking to Charlie. In fact, we quote from it in that final speech, but I say, stay tuned for further instructions. That's the end. So then we thought, okay, so Box 2 has to continue from that, yes, but now we're in a bit of a pickle because Box 1's whole conceit was that you didn't know that all these sort of things were hidden within the box and that you had to explore further. And so now when you start Box 2, you can't do the same thing because everyone's going to have already experienced all of the stuff in Box 1. So how do you make Box 2 unique enough that it feels singular in its own right, and yet it still satisfies the gamer who's already spent hours playing its predecessor? And then simultaneously, you can't assume that everyone that's playing Box 2 has played Box 1. So then you have to think, okay, so here we go. We have to think about the demographics. You want to be able to make something that can sell on big shelves, right? Target, Barnes & Noble, Kroger's, big places. And then Walmart. And then how do you assume that people can play box 2 on its own without having played box 1? So we sat in that for a while. But that was fun, right? Those were the challenges in front of us. And I always thought what would be exciting is if box 2 was a game for 2 people. So we're changing the concept. And so how do you do a game for 2 people? 2 people could play together, a couple. But what if you were playing with another person who had also purchased box 2? And there have been a couple comps of that from the past. I'm trying to think. There's computer version of these games, right? Where you are looking at random things on your screen and you're playing with someone else who's looking at different things on the screen. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, PG?
Yeah, there's games like It Takes Two.
Yes.
There's different versions where basically the 2 players are seeing different things, and so it becomes a communication game.
Right. So you're saying, okay, I'm looking at poker chips and I see 4 of them, and someone says, oh, that's interesting because I have some slots over on mine. Well, what does your poker chip say? And you have to go back and forth. And I say, oh, this is a clever way in, because then you're playing with somebody else and you need somebody else. So you're in the box 2 construct. But then I was like, okay, so what if that person that you're playing with is really me? Like nefarious Neil Patrick Harris again. How would we accomplish that? That could be cool, because then we could mislead you. And so that was kind of where we got a little giggly with the prospects of what that could be. And this was at the time before, I'd say a couple years before ChatGPT and AI became a thing. So it was easy to do bot texting where it seemed like a text thread, but it was clearly a robot, right? And so we wanted to better that idea. And timing was both good and, in my opinion, like a little bit frustrating in that regard, because I think now people are consumed by AI discord that they almost, I would guess they would assume it wasn't me. At every turn, I wanted this again to feel like if we can create a couple aha moments where people are thinking, wait, am I really playing with Neil Patrick Harris? Like, could this actually be happening? Then we're succeeding in a big way. And then we can take narrative shifts within that.
Which is now very hard to do in a post-ChatGPT world.
Truth.
It used to be, like, speaking as a software designer and tech consultant, there's always been a certain amount of magical thinking in the general populace around what technology is. And the black box that is LLMs and what we call AI, like that has added many extra layers of magical thinking that has in some ways destroyed the magic of all of it.
Agreed.
Certainly made it more challenging. There were 2 things that I think we faced that were not planned on Box 1. Box 1 was a 1-player game that was released about 2 weeks into a global pandemic that we did not plan for. So suddenly this thing that was like a very novel concept that Neil and I were pitching to mass retailers like Target of like, hey, we have this great idea for this 1-player game people can do by themselves at home. Like, why would anyone want that? Suddenly there's a global pandemic and everyone's at home looking for cool stuff to do. So it's just like this weirdly fortuitous timing. And then with Box 2, everything here based on this concept of trying to create the feeling of real collaboration and stuff right as ChatGPT is coming to massive popularity. So there's a lot of things, I don't want to spoil them, but there's multiple things within Box 2 that like the smartest people playing it will notice and be befuddled by, like, wait, I get it. Neil's not actually playing with me in real time here. I'm aware that like he's not playing with it, but there's some things in Box 2 are like, how did he do that? Because the only other explanation is like Neil did hundreds and hundreds of videos of every possible incarnation of that.
Right. We came up with a lot of moments where you have to make either one of 2 decisions. So even the very first thing you do is open up the lid of the box, and then suddenly the lid of the box becomes a second box. And so now there are 2 boxes a la Box 2. And then you read your instructions and you have to make a decision of one of 2 things. Put a key in a slot, and that's going to determine the fate. Do you go this way or that way? So you have one of 2 choices. And then you set up the conceit. Half of the box opens, half of the box you're never going to get to because you chose the other side of the box. And so you're in a duality headspace for a lot of it. And then when you do get and find and acquire items within the box, we want them to be well made and feel practical and good and not just plasticky and mass produced, but also those devices will be used twice, which is another sort of box 2 situation, is that everything gets used more than once.
And you have choices, throughout the process of what object you're using in what sequence. So people playing the game, as you make those choices, they impact the sequence of the game, but Neil is somehow aware of the choices you're making and the sequence of which you're making those choices and talking to you as if he knows. So without getting too far into the weeds of the gameplay of it, those were the things that we geeked out on. And like, how do we go really wild on that so that, of course, in a post-ChatGPT world, people know that they're not actually talking to Neil in real time, but also there's enough substance there where it's actually really pretty convincing. There's a part of some stuff here that adds additional novelty on top of the layers of production quality and design and experiential things that we wanted to lace into it.
I think it's still fun, though, because even if you know this is not really Neil Patrick Harris talking to me at this exact moment, there is still a suspension of disbelief that comes. Like, I talk to my dog all the time, and like, I don't expect him to talk back, but in my head, I hear it. And so let's talk about the box a little bit, because the game, the box, all of the materials inside are absolutely gorgeous, which, as we've discussed, this is a hallmark of Theory 11 products. But box 2 is remarkably intricate. I know this is like a really broad question, but what is the short version of how you got this made?
Well, Jonathan can speak to it in depth, but we really wanted it to feel like a thing that kept expanding. And so blue sky idea forming of cool things that could happen, we did. But then a lot of them were immediately met with a question of practicality, of how can you do that to scale, and how can you do that and be assured that half the boxes won't arrive broken, or that sliding panels won't slide. It needs to work 100% of the time. And to Jonathan Bayme's credit, he is a beast in that regard and dealt with box 1 a lot. We actually made a box 1 2.0 fairly shortly after the first one happened, because a final envelope that you received was opening up prematurely in some of people's boxes, and they got the end token without needing to look for it. And so that was a big bummer. And playtesting, as you guys know, is super important. Jonathan can speak to the playtesting of it, but I have to say what is also fun about box 2, since you get to go online as a component to be playing with somebody else, is we're able to make changes to box 2 in real time. And I say that because we really are. What's exciting is I can make more videos and we can take away videos. And when we get feedback from people, not unlike David, who had some feedback about a couple of the video concepts within it.
I never have feedback, ever.
No. But what was so great for us and what was actually freeing is that then we implemented those notes. It's not like we went, bummer, we should have thought about that. We can change that now so that it makes it a better gameplay.
And I suggested them because I knew that you could. I had a rough idea of how the underlying tech would work, and because I know how much you care. So I wouldn't have sent that stuff if I didn't think it was actually going to get implemented.
No, we love that. Jonathan, speak to it.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about that. First off, I can never direct a movie ever because I don't know when a project is ever finished in my head. Like literally this afternoon, I was still editing artwork on the Beatles products that we made, that we released those 4 years ago. So I probably drive my team crazy to nothing is ever done, forever done. It's always all right, if you have a little tweak to that and then a little tweak to that, every time you reprint it, to me, it's an opportunity to make a little tweak. Like a sculpture, you could say it's done, but I don't know. If we don't have to call it done, I'd rather not. So we continue to sculpt things. So that comes in the form of just design improvements, like I mentioned, but also functionality. Neil, a great example of the box 1 envelope that we were seeing some people is too easy. So we tweaked it. We changed it between printings and made it a little bit more resilient. So similarly with box 2, a lot of the stuff in terms of inspirations, I think Neil, in your previous residence, you had a little diorama, right? That's the right word for it?
Yeah.
That was near your closet or something. And I remember every time I walked in the house, I saw this little diorama of this whole cool lit scene that Neil had in his house. So that was a seed of inspiration of some of the stuff that we did in box 2. But back to the iterative component, box 1, substantial portion no spoilers of the experience occurs online. Online aspects give us the opportunity, and I'd say the obligation, to keep it organic and continue to improve it, tweak it, update it. If people have questions and like, actually, you know what, we got this feedback in, you can play test all you want for 1,000 people, but until 10,000 people play something, 20,000 people play something, 50,000 people play something, you can learn a lot more. And so if you're not listening to that feedback and constantly improving and evolving, what I've learned from producing live shows is every night after the show, I get a report that's about 4 paragraphs long from our production manager. Some things coincidentally go right in a live magic show that are like fortuitous that we then do forever after that, because I was like, wow, like this person said this and this person randomly said that and it worked out well. And some things go wrong. And then we like, that show, as we mentioned, is 10 years old now. We're still chipping away at it every single night. So certainly wanted to do the same thing with box 1 and also box 2.
We're taking a moment to thank our sponsor, Hive, the race to save time. This is an online puzzle hunt based on the new sci-fi book, Hive, the first novel in the Matters of Time series by award-winning author D.L. Orton. PG, how is this puzzle hunt going to work?
David, the only thing I love more than puzzle hunts are puzzle hunts where you can actually win money. There will be 3 rounds, and there are prizes for each round, even the easy one. Every player who completes the meta puzzle can enter a sweepstakes drawing for a cash prize. For the easy round, there's going to be 20 prizes of $25 each. For the medium round, there's 10 prizes of $50. And for the last round, there's going to be 5 prizes of $100 each.
There is a chance for absolutely everyone to win, not just the strongest puzzlers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you don't have to feel like you're competing with the guys who are super, super fast, because I'm a good puzzler. I know I can get through to the end, but I know I'm not going to be first place. So this is great. As long as you can cross that finish line, you have a chance to win these cash prizes.
And the puzzle hunt itself is created by a trusted creator, friend of the show, John Brommels. He has written so many puzzle hunts. We love his puzzles, and we were so excited to help spread the news about Hive, the Race to Save Time, which will run from May 16th through the 26th, 2025. Purchase of the book or free alternative method of entry registration is required to participate, but the ebook is available for just 99 cents while the hunt is running. Go to hivebookgame.com for details, and we'll have links for you in the show notes. Happy puzzling. There's kind of a sub-theme, especially when it comes to you, Neil, throughout this episode, and I think it's also evident the first time we interviewed you, is this level of curiosity and really wanting to get into the weeds of how things that you care about work. And that really hit home for me when you came to the Reality Escape Convention, our escape room and immersive gaming convention. When you came to that, you were in the early stages of designing Box 2. And one thing that a lot of people said to me after the event was how clear it was that you weren't at Recon as a tourist. You were there as a professional who was sincerely looking to learn and engage with the medium. What did you take away from your time at that event?
What a great question, David. Thank you for asking it. I have been endlessly fascinated by observing creative people doing next level things. The only fan letter I ever wrote when I was 7 or 8 years old was to Jim Henson.
Good pick.
Because I was just amazed that someone could make something out of cloth and ping pong balls feel so real and feel so alive. How does the set work? Are they all crouched down, or is the set higher up? Are they squatting? Are they on little stools? I just wanted to know how it worked. And so then when I would go to New York and see Broadway shows, and I'd see Les Miserables and this turntable spun people around, and where did the set go? And is it backstage? Is it up high? So I'm really deeply fascinated and curious, which is a really good word, about how the machinations work. So going to Recon was so inspiring. It brought up a lot of impostery syndrome because, again, I don't have 5 escape rooms and that's my business. I'm just wildly interested in it. But getting to know people was just wild, and to hear people's ideas, and people are so incredibly selfless, at least in my experiences, of sharing ideas, of being willing to sidebar and not just say, here's my card, I'll be a consultant and profit from you, but to be around these like-minded people, and then to go to Boxaroo and see
Storyteller's Secret.
Oh my God, Storyteller's Secret is a fantastic escape room in Boston. And it's like a story that happens, and it's very cinematic, and it's not scary. So the game itself was just wonderful. Almost a perfect escape experience. It was like heartwarming, which is weird. And then afterwards, we met the team who created it, right? Victor Hung.
Fro and Arcturus, Bree.
Yeah, and they're so nice. And they didn't just say, no, you can't take pictures. They said, oh, here, and they opened up the wall, and they showed us where all the tech was. And then they said, we'll show you how the reset works, which is unbelievable. Like, their version of reset was crazy. And I was just so inspired by, wow, yes, I'm not going to go to MIT anytime soon, but to have that kind of brain to be able to do that. And then I was just in Austin doing some voiceover work, and I got to go to Escape Hour and play some of their games. And they have a multitude of games, this family, and they build everything. They did all the tech. They do all the building. They do all the painting, all the theming, all of the design. They do all the hiring. They're putting their life, their resources into making something that groups of people go to and fail and laugh and flop sweat and scream and leave loving. I'm enamored by all of that. I'm enamored in the same way by, like, how does a circus troupe go from town to town and put up this tent made of wood and fabric and then create an experience that people will remember forever? And I don't know what that really came from in me, but I've always just loved that. So when I get to meet people who do that, who have chosen to do that as their vocation, as their life choice, I'm just always impressed by those types of people.
It feels good to hear that you felt inspired. And I want everybody listening at home, even Neil Patrick Harris gets imposter syndrome. So we've all felt it. If you're feeling it, you're definitely not alone. And I appreciate you saying that, actually.
Thanks. I mean, going to London and doing Phantom Peak, which is amazing and so unique and singular. And then you talk to Nick Moran, who's the head of that, and like, he's so happy to talk about all of it because he fucking did all of it. Like, you can't advertise for escape rooms.
Not in major markets.
It's very expensive. You can't put billboards up. I mean, you can, but to flood something on Facebook, that's thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's just word of mouth. It's just people who are enthusiasts who like this stuff telling their friends that they like this stuff, and that's what keeps it alive. And that's not unlike Magic. I was the president of the Magic Castle. And you can't go to the Magic Castle unless you're a member. So you need the members to be happy, and you need the members to invite people, and you need those people to think it's cool and to want to come again. That's the only way you do it. And so you have to have a respect for creativity, and you have to have a respect for authenticity, and you have to, like, really love what you do.
This is one of the things that I keep harping on over the years is I know a lot of us are really burned out on social media and the state of all of that. But at the same time, we all have this power to tell our friends about things that you love, things that were great, things that are worth doing, because there's so much that just isn't. And I don't think that enough of us exercise that power enough. I think when you're really enjoying something, tell people about it. That's become my life's work in a weird way. And if I can encourage everybody to do that, please do it.
As long as it's agenda free.
Yeah, agenda free. But like, if you genuinely like something, don't just keep it to yourself. Let people know about it. Whether you do it on social media or just in an interpersonal conversation.
Right.
Share what you love with people. because I think that they will respond to it.
You're absolutely right, David. That's what I feel like I'm in a weirdly unique position to do sometimes, which is tell more people than others get the opportunity to do about a thing that I think is worth talking about, right? And hosting the Tonys was a big thing for me because the Tony Awards was not an award show that got a ton of ratings. CBS at the time really didn't care about how it did. It was often against pro football and didn't do very well. But even if it was 2 million, 2.5 million people, it allowed millions of people to watch performances by the ensemble companies of these shows who are working their faces and their bodies off 8 times a week. And they're really good performances. And so if I get to be the Kermit the Frog, the P.T. Barnum, the guy that stands there and says, welcome to the show, now look at this thing, I will do that whenever I can.
And I've never seen anybody do that as much and as honestly as you do. I've certainly been the beneficiary of some of that from time to time, but like I've watched you do it so many times with so many different creators and so many different craftspeople. And every single time that I have, like I said earlier, met somebody or been introduced to someone's work because you were drawn to it, my life has gotten better in some way as a result of it. And that's
so nice.
It's a really cool thing that you do.
Thanks, man.
We are hosting our convention virtually this year, August 17th and 18th, 2025. Everyone can come to Recon. Tickets start at the low, low price of free, and they're very affordable for community tickets if you want to play our game and participate in the conversation. And if you're a pro and you want to get into all of the exclusive discussions, come join. Check out what we're doing. There is no more accessible or affordable way to get top-notch learnings and knowledge about the creation and business of escape rooms. Learn more at realityescapecon.com.
What do you get when you cross puzzles, pals, and trivia? It's PG's Playhouse, our new show where we play games and explore interesting topics. If you love wordplay and learning about new things, check out PG's Playhouse, available now wherever you get your podcasts. So, Neil, Jonathan, what are the odds of us seeing a box 3?
Hi. When is a big question. And there will be, inevitably. But I think, like Neil said at the beginning, it's not about like we're in a specific rush or we're in some specific timeline. It's the right concept. So many of the variables that Neil talked about, how box 2 needed to thread the needle of so many different things. It needed to appeal to people who have never played box 1 before, never heard of box 1 before, and hardcore box 1 fanatics who knew everything in the book.
Also, box 1 dramatically overperformed, I think, expectations.
Absolutely.
Most people don't hit a ball that hard on their first swing.
Yeah. So how do we do anything that was going to like follow in that footstep? And you can't use the same tricks of the trade. And then, so that was what was so difficult and time consuming in the creative process of box 2. But there's certainly a ton that we learned in the process of box 1 that was to the benefit of box 2. And I think there's a lot of things we've learned in the process of box 2.
I will also say, and we're not being cagey, we would love to do a box 3. That seems like it could be an inevitability because it's good, but we're not in process for box 3 right now. And we're thinking about ideas of what it could even possibly be.
And that makes sense. I think there's one piece of nuance that I want to make sure is fully understood when it comes to both box 1 and box 2. With most products, with playing cards, you can make a beautiful deck of playing cards, and then the second deck you make, you take all of the learnings from the first one, fold that into the second one. When you make a tabletop escape game, especially one like box 1, almost everything that you did in that has to go in the garbage for the second iteration. The only thing that you were really able to keep were Neil and an aesthetic, and everything else had to be built from the ground up. And I think that was always the challenge of box 2. And I think it's where some of its beauty comes from. And I also think it's always going to be that sophomore album from that band who you love their first album. And
Yep, for sure.
maybe a few years later, you'll be like, oh, maybe I was a little too hard on that second box because I love the first one so damn much.
Absolutely. I think, when you're doing any sort of sequel, even though box 2 is not a sequel in the strict sense of box 1, like the narrative context, we try to make it really clear, like this is a separate experience. This is a separate adventure. This is not a continuation of the story like a movie sequel. But certainly that was a challenge. Like, how do you do something worthy of something that we're so immensely proud of, which is box 1?
I would also say that ego-wise, we had to check ourselves a little bit because we loved box 1 and we loved its reception. But it's like making a YouTube video and getting a surprising amount of views and then being disappointed because your second video doesn't get more views. It doesn't necessarily work that way. And what is unique about our situation is we're not trying to win the game of it at all. We're in a weirdly unique position where because my name gets to be on the box, we get to sell more of them quickly. With that becomes an opportunity for us to be able to have people play these kind of games for the first time. And so we had to check our egos of how do we make this more challenging and like more complicated in a way that me as Neil would like, and think, let's also make it something that a grandma can play with her 15-year-old grandson, and they can both think, oh, this type of game exists? Cool, let's play more of these. And so with that, you lose maybe a little bit of potential gameplay subtlety. But I'm proud of Box 2 in its construct. It's simpler as a design, and I think what would be fun about creating Box 3 ideas, and if anyone has them, please reach out to us. Like, how do you turn concepts of 2 into more triad and triangulation? And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. And I don't even know what that means.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I like that you're continuing with the theme of this is now going to be designed for 3 people to play. That was going to ask you about that. But I think it was smart to go with appealing to a more general audience. I also really liked that the hint system was built into the game. You didn't feel like you were going to an external website and I'm looking up hints. Instead, you feel like I'm just asking my playing partner. So I think that was a really good way to go. As someone else who always tries to promote these types of games, I think it was really smart to make it accessible and pique people's interest into these types of games, and they'll hopefully try more. And so even for me, someone who's played a lot of this type of stuff, and I still was drawn into the story and the spectacle of it. And even with escape rooms, I don't really need escape rooms to be super hard. I want them to be fascinating and interesting and have a good story to tell. And I think you'll find that with a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of times, that's really what we're here for, like the cinematic experience of it anyhow.
We were hoping for more, oh, that's cool moments in Box 2 than, you got me.
There are a lot of, oh, that's cool moments in there.
Yes.
Yeah, the magical aspect of it. There's a lot of magical moments in Box 1, things that get revealed in really clever ways and codes and things like that. But there's a lot of those things in Box 2. So I think people listening to this who now are aware that Neil and I both have a history in magic, it'll make a lot more sense of how that came to be. Because taking those principles and sometimes methods of magic tricks and marrying those with the gameplay here, the objects and stuff that are within Box 2, these are individual magic tricks literally in and of themselves that we've made as components.
Yeah, I would say Box 1 felt more like spectacle and Box 2 felt more like you were showcasing craftsmanship.
Nice.
Yeah, the novelty of those things. Most people have never seen before. Some of these concepts, like Neil and I have been aware of since we were kids.
Things you can do with wire, things you can do with paper.
That are unbelievable.
Which was really fun because then Jonathan gets to try and source it. And they have to like convince massive manufacturers who say, we've never done this, this cannot be done. He would have to go and say, no, I will show you how it's done, and he'll convince them.
In the bonus show, I have some manufacturing questions for you.
Perfect.
Before we close out, I have a couple more questions for you both. Jonathan, talk to me about the subtle art of networking, specifically the untraditional and boring follow-up email.
For me, it's not the first second. It's like the 11th. It took us 11 years of emails to get into Target stores. That's what led to this in Box 1. It was 11 years of messages. And I think it was a side effect of me growing up Not that Charleston is this tiny city in South Carolina.
From a magic standpoint, it's real small.
Yes, I was isolated. I'd never met another magician. So I needed to figure out how to communicate. And I was desperate in every sense of the word to connect with other magicians and designers and craftsmen and things like that. Out of desperation, I think is the honest answer. I had to learn how to communicate. And I was desperately trying to network and meet people and sharpen my skills, work with people who are better, smarter, sharper, and more creative than myself. And so that meant out of isolation in Charleston, South Carolina, from my parents' garage where Theory 11 started, having to reach out to lots of people and follow up with those people and develop friendships that I still communicate with on a weekly basis. I started working with David Copperfield because I was writing emails when I was 12 years old to a guy named Chris Kenner, who was David's and still is David's longtime executive producer. And I would write him emails probably like every 3 or 4 days. And these were not like good emails that were easy to respond to. These were like 5-paragraph messages like that out of the kindness of this guy's heart. And he's always been a big supporter of young magicians and the youth and magic and next generation of magicians. But it was just out of isolation that I had to learn to communicate and use the internet. And this was back in the AOL, Netscape, days where there weren't Slack channels and Zoom calls.
Sending him an A message.
Yeah.
But Jonathan's perseverance and abilities of persuasion are quite singular. He's my best friend, so I'm saying nice things about him, but he's a genuinely nice, good person. At the same time, he's needing to hustle and sell and follow up with emails, but it's never in a way that is aggressive or angry. And I think there's lessons to be learned by people listening there. He will follow up to a giant company, to LucasArts, to Universal, about a thing that he wants accomplished. And if they don't respond, he'll write them again in another week. And he'll continue to do that until they respond. And they don't get meaner. They don't get more aggressive. They don't get angrier. Like, he's not taking it personally. He will just keep at it.
Okay. Jonathan, Theory 11 has gotten into jigsaw puzzles, and I'm a jigsaw fan. And I see there's a handful of licensed properties, and they all have beautiful stylized images. Now, I have opinions on this, but what do you feel makes for a compelling jigsaw puzzle?
So our entire adventure into jigsaw puzzles. Neil, what are you laughing at? Who did I say?
I know, Neil is losing.
No, I'm not laughing. I'm very happy with the question because, PG, you're a puzzle enthusiast, and I'm assuming based on your question that you haven't played any of these puzzles. And so Jonathan there's an element to these puzzles that I think you'll enjoy. So it makes me happy.
Oh, I'm missing out. I will after this.
Okay, so I was walking through a Target store, and I happened to browse by the puzzle section. This was about 2 years ago. And I was like, this is it? Like, where are the really cool puzzles that are super beautiful design and puzzles are art? Like, they must have those hidden. And I didn't see those. I was underwhelmed.
Yeah, spoiler alert, there are none.
Yeah.
Before you move on, I, at Toy Fair, had a conversation with a series of different puzzle manufacturers a few years ago on this very specific subject, which is like, why is it that almost none of the puzzles on the shelves appeal to me? And their answer was, from almost every company, they all gave me the same answer, which our target audience is a woman in her 50s.
Wow. Okay. That's very indicative of the state of that industry right now.
An opportunity, I smell.
Yeah, that was the opportunity. So I saw similar opportunity in puzzles as I did with playing cards. There's nothing more ordinary or everyday than the deck of cards that your aunt keeps in her kitchen drawer for 20 years. And that's the same deck that they use. And elevating that. And if we can do that with a deck of cards, imagine what we could do with 10 times that real estate. Our puzzles, they're 24 inches wide. So a playing card is 2.5 inches wide. So there's so many decisions that we have to limit ourselves from a design capabilities on playing cards that if you gave me a much larger canvas, we can paint a much broader, bigger, cooler picture. So then I was like, all right, what if we did the same crazy production quality and production specs and gold foil and incredible design that we spend 6 months making for each of these puzzles, be that Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, Yellowstone. We've got a bunch more that are on the way this year. And so we thought, that's awesome. That's great. This is going to be the thing, right? We're going to make Theory 11 of puzzles. Same thing we do with playing cards puzzles. And then, I don't know, like the late night thoughts and stuff came to me, and I think I was in the shower, and this is what I think about in the shower, is puzzles.
Same.
And I was like, maybe there's something better to do here. There's something more than just it being a beautiful puzzle. So then I had this idea of what if there was some sort of experience that gets unlocked after and only after you finish the puzzle. What's the worst part of solving any puzzle? It's that little awkward time where you and your family have to take all the pieces apart and you put them back in the box, and it's such a buzzkill.
You're like, and now what?
Yeah, like,
everyone come look at my puzzle. That's what I do.
Yeah, you can frame them, or most people don't, and then they go back in the box quietly, and it's just the end of the experience is so like anticlimactic that you're just putting it all back together, sort of undoing all of that work that you did. So that led us to the creative prompt of how do we make the worst part of any puzzle experience, taking it apart, the finishing of the puzzle, the best part of the puzzle. So the riddle, we iterated on this for a long time, but that led to us thinking, what if there's some secret experience that gets unlocked when and only when you complete the puzzle? So we had this idea, and I can spoil it because you're not going to be able to see anything. What ends up happening is after you complete the puzzle, which I hope you do, you have instructions that are inside the box. For people listening to this, you don't see this, but inside the box, it tells you take a flash photograph of the completed puzzle. And it has to be completed, or you're not going to see it. And if you take a flash photograph, not a normal photograph, a flash photograph of it, we used a very proprietary blend of photochromatic ink, and it unlocks a secret website which unlocks an entire online game for each of these puzzles that we don't talk about on the box. And I love that we don't talk about it on the box. It's not marketed based on that. This is just an Easter egg. And there are 4, 5, 6, 7-step digital games that we made for each of these properties, be that Harry Potter, Stranger Things, Lord of the Rings, whatever. And they're all different for each of these. And that is the last taste in your mouth when you complete the puzzle, is this high endorphin kick, excitement, adrenaline rush of playing this game that you didn't even know that you were expecting.
But wait, there's more. I love that.
And I have to say, the moment that you take a flash image of a puzzle that you've pored over and you finally solve, and then it has revealed something. You guys have seen photochromatic ink in escape room situations.
It's a good trick.
It's a good trick.
Yeah, so doing that on puzzles, to Neil's point earlier, I think I had maybe 12 different factories say that was not going to happen, or it wouldn't work for this reason or that reason. It works on stop signs because of this, and it works on board games because of this. But doing that on puzzles that people are using, and it needs to be invisible on top of the puzzle without clouding the design of the puzzle or making it too obvious. And then we had other trial runs of this concept where it was difficult to read. You couldn't read the secret message, which is not a good outcome either. So it's either too difficult to read or too easy to read. And everyone told me that it was not going to work. It was not going to work. We should switch to glow in the dark ink, and we should switch to this. But I just was obsessed with this idea. I was like, I know this can work. I just have this in my head. We kept getting a response back, and the factory told us it was empirically impossible. Was the words. So then that became like the running joke of our team. We actually, one of our team members we collaborate with, that's our new LLC, is Empirically Impossible LLC.
That's so good.
I think you just gave us an episode title.
Nice.
And then doing that, and then it worked, and it's awesome. So I'd love you to play it and see that, but I also love that this is just an Easter egg at the end of the experience.
But wait, I have a question. I have a follow-up question, and it's more for PG, because as a puzzler, and as someone who does lots of jigsaw puzzles, what are your thoughts about, because your real question was, what are your thoughts about the image of the puzzle itself, yeah? Yes.
It's so funny because I had all these hot takes, and actually none of them involved what happens after you finish the puzzle. Mine are all about what happens during the creation of the puzzle itself. And so the biggest things are really, I want each piece to be legible. I've done puzzles where the graphic is actually a little bit blurry, and so you can't see
low res.
Low res, yes. So it has to be high res. If you can make individual pieces be interesting in and of themselves, I have no desire to do like the all black puzzle. Like again, it's like with escape rooms, I don't want it to be hard. I want it to be interesting while I'm in the process of doing it. Yes. So like I want the individual pieces to have an interesting detail. I don't like big swaths of color. I like a lot of detail. So that way I could be like the red paisley, and it's easy for me to find all the pieces and be like, oh, let me collect red paisley. That goes over here. I like when puzzles have big sections of areas and colors that are very distinct. So that makes it easy to sort. And yeah, and I want it to be fun and interesting, really. And the pieces also, I like novelty pieces. I don't like when all the pieces have that classic puzzle shape. I want them to all look different. Those are just a few.
It's great feedback.
Of my opinions on
Those are all great notes. I think in the process, I'd never designed a puzzle before we made puzzles. And so a lot of things that we learned in the process here. One was about the importance of contrast.
Contrast, texture, color, depth.
Yep. I remember getting 30 plus samples from different factories we were working with. It was so important to me, like how they snapped together. And I wanted to be like a satisfying click when the puzzle piece fits into place. And some of them were too loosey-goosey where they like do a little wiggle. And I'm like, I don't want that. Like
Too loose, too tight. Both can be bad.
Goldilocks.
Yep.
There's a company called Liberty Puzzles that they do these like wooden laser cut puzzles, and they're beautiful. And I've done a bunch of other style of wooden puzzles, but they're loosey-goosey. And these Liberty puzzles, when you put it in, you slide it, it almost kind of like shloop and like clicks into place and it fits and it's tactile. You know, because puzzles are tactile, right? They have to feel good while you're doing it.
Yeah. The other challenge for us, besides the tactile sensation and the design looking good and having good contrast and multiple colors, so it's fun to do. It's not just, I remember the first draft of Harry Potter puzzle was all like gold and brown. It looked beautiful. It was honestly breathtaking. But I immediately realized this would be super not fun, because if you put this all on your table, you would just see a sea of gold and brown pieces. They all look the same. So having contrast in multiple colors, the puzzles that we're about to release are even more colorful than the ones we've done so far. And then the other thing was just about detail. This is a Harry Potter puzzle with all original design. This is Lord of the Rings puzzle, all original design. So having 10 times more real estate than we do in playing cards, that we already spend 8 months designing a deck of cards with, how many Easter eggs from Harry Potter can we squeeze into this thing? How many little small references to Stranger Things iconography, so that the closer you look at the puzzle, the more of those details and intricate things that you see. That's what I love. I like seeing people on Reddit. They're like, holy crap, did you see like this small, tiny little reference of the Azkaban prison in Harry Potter, or the Nimbus 2000 on the side? So I love people geeking out over the small little details and how many things we agonized over.
When you see like a little mouse being mischievous in the corner, you know, I love little details like that, because you're staring at up close at these things for hours.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry to go on a whole puzzle tangent.
Love it.
So, Neil, in collaboration with past Reality Escape Pod guests and our mutual friend Chris Waters, you made the Capital One NPH Murder Mystery. What was this highly exclusive and beloved bit of madness?
Capital One has reached out to us a few times to be partners with their credit cards as a sort of exclusive opportunities. So if you're a Capital One card member, then you get first dibs for like a fancy dinner with Thomas Keller. And they reached out to see if we would want to do something. And we proposed a murder mystery, and they loved and ran with the idea. And so we created, just from scratch, in a hotel in the Berkshires, this idea of a murder mystery. And so I gathered all my friends, not all, I gathered some of my friends, and we cobbled together the idea of what would a murder mystery look like for people who really aren't enthusiasts at all, it seems. They just wanted to go do a cool random thing. And so it was mostly beta testing, and it was so fun. We hired on and collaborated with Chris Waters, who was great because he's very skilled in handling the logistics of the puzzling.
He makes bespoke adventures for people as a career. That is all he does.
And his brain trust is really good with knowing, great, we can divide this group of 40 into 4 groups of 10. And then from that, each group of 10 can have 3 different opportunities to interact with characters within, and they'll be in these different locations, right? So branching out the execution of it, I think, is in Chris's wheelhouse as well. And he's a legitimately lovely, kind, fantastically nice guy as well. So that's super helpful. And we went and did it, and it was crazy. And we learned so much because people were really into it. Like, they got really into everything. And I realized, oh no, every single word that we say as improv actors, they're going to take as fact, as maybe a potential clue, as something that they need to retain. And oftentimes, as a silly actor in a room where I've had a British accent and I was like just pontificating about things, I didn't realize that people were paying a lot of attention to the details that I was just making up. And so by the end, when we're getting to the big grand finale, the denouement, that was highly planned out. And these poor actors didn't realize they were going to have to do monologuing, and it was in conjunction with dinner. And the denouement was great. And a great friend of mine and friend to the Immersive and Escaping World, Emily Gillette, who is a remarkable human being and a great friend, she came and she was a stooge within it, a plant. So she was playing as Emily Zoltan, and no one knew that she knew anyone. And so in the denouement, she stands up to start speaking and then starts coughing and had Alka-Seltzer hidden in her mouth. And so then she started convulsing and she fell over and had been poisoned, so she couldn't reveal anything. We picked her up and we carried her out, and people thought she had a seizure and that she was really in trouble for real. It was amazing. It was so fantastic.
Emily is wonderful, and I have been involved in her being a plant before, and she's very good.
She's so great, and she's so gung-ho, and I've been on lots of adventures with her. And if you run into Emily Gillette in your path of life, in immersive anything, jump on board. But we did it, and it was great, and I think we're going to do another one, and we're going to level it up and see how we can learn from it. But murder mystery's always been my jam, and thanks for mentioning it.
If you're interested in learning more about Chris Waters, we have an interview with him, season 3, episode 8. He is an incredible guest, a wonderful human being, just always entertaining. What comes next for you both?
Tomorrow, I've never planned my life more than 1 week, if that, in advance. I'm not here's my 6-month goals, the year-long things. I focus intently and adamantly on what's immediately in front of my face and aggressively pursue that. Some of the greatest adventures in my life were just things I did not plan and was willfully going along for the ride of things and pursuing new directions and new ideas. And certainly didn't realize that when we met 10 years ago, Neil, that we would be talking about a second board game release 10 years later on a podcast. Didn't expect to do anything in my life. I expected to be a magician. That was it. That was my original goal. So we'll see. I'm excited to be along for the ride, and we'll find out.
I keep trying to make money when I'm able and then be creative when I'm able.
Hear, hear.
I'm a spokesman for some mushroom coffee called Rise Coffee. You should check those things out. The commercials I'm very proud of. They're very funny. I'm also going to be making a movie in Scotland, which will be cool, with an actor named Bella Ramsey from The Last of Us. And they are amazingly talented. Game of Thrones as well. And I'm going to be on an episode of the new Dexter series.
Ooh.
I was in Austin doing some voiceover work for a VR video game that'll be super fun. I'm also still trying to figure out how to make a labyrinth hedge maze escape room, so that I'm still stuck in the literal weeds on that. That's just in my own house in the backyard. And I'm trying to figure out how to take a linear actuator that's going to attach to a door. I have a haunted mansion breathing door, like the breathing hallway in the haunted mansion.
Yes.
And I have one of the doors and it's almost finished. And I have the little modules and I have the actuator, and I can't figure out how to attach it to the metal sheet that the door is adhered to. So that is what I'm currently focused on.
Wow, we thought we were busy, David.
Honestly, doing the linear actuator work is making me appreciate everyone who makes escape rooms, because it's that know-how that I wish I had, which is not only how the mechanics of actuators work and how that science of it, but also what adhesive works. And then it makes me wish that I knew how to weld. And then it makes me wish I knew how to make Raspberry Pis do what they do. So it's the all of it that I'm still focused on.
I feel all of that.
All right. And so if people want to give you advice on how to make this door work, or if they want to follow your work or connect with you, how can they do so?
I'm on all the socials, mostly on Instagram. I think I'm at NPH. And I've just started doing the Blue Sky, which I think is super fun and more on a positive tilt. So that's been good. DM me or make a comment on Instagram is probably the best way to get to me.
All right. And Jonathan, how about you?
Theory 11's on all the socials, at least on Instagram primarily, like Neil mentioned, at Theory 11. If you're interested in the puzzles, I'd love for people to try them out, yourself especially, and see what you think. I think the goal being to obviously make them be beautiful, but also I love to see what you think of the experience that follows them as that Easter egg. And yeah, we're always working on just like a comical amount of projects at once. I don't know what my life would be like if we weren't doing 20 things at once. I think what I find fulfilling about my day and my life is that we're always working on so many new things. So lots to come the year ahead.
Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have been a big admirer of Theory 11's work long before Box One. I really respect the level of detail and craft that gets worked into every single product that you put out. And I also appreciate how complicated it is to do that while working with large brands and all of the approval processes that no one ever sees the work and the pain and the difficulty that goes in on that front end. But I truly appreciate what you have done with the whole suite of products. And Neil, thank you for just everything. Thank you for being such a good friend, such a supporter of the immersive arts of games. And I'm going to blindside PG right now. In 2007, I was having one of the worst years of my life. I had moved to a new place. I didn't really have friends. I had come to the conclusion that I also didn't even really like who I was. And I was at this weird point in time where I was watching a lot of TV, watching How I Met Your Mother. I was watching Survivor China, which was on at that point in time. And if I could go back in time and tell myself that, like, oh yeah, these people who were literally just characters from television at this really low point in your life when you just really were trying to figure out who you even were, if I could go back and tell myself that, like, I would be friends with these people and collaborating with them and making interesting content, I would not have believed myself. And yeah, I'm just so deeply appreciative of what you have brought to my life over the last few years. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. I will accept that and take it in, and simultaneously thank the two of you, because we are in a strange place in a news cycle-y world where diversion is important and where escapism is necessary. And I think that you guys are taking time out of your lives to educate others about how to better themselves within it and how to recommend things that they like, whether they be escape rooms or audible games that you can listen to as a podcast. It's a great thing that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
This episode of the Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza with support by Lisa Spira, Chris Waters, and Nate Javier. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Boy, am I aware that everyone out there is competing for your Patreon dollars these days. And I gotta tell you, we benefit so much from our Patreon community, from the financial support and the moral support that they provide. We have grown so much over the last few years. And by grow, I really mean we've built a lot of infrastructure to make all of Room Escape Artist work so much better. And that is only possible because of our Patreon community. That is the bedrock that everything we're doing is built upon. And we are so deeply thankful to every single person who has joined. And if you have the money and you're able to, we will be so appreciative if you can put your support behind us.
And if you're loving our content, we do have more. We have the bonus after show where we continue the conversation with our guests, and it is a whole lot of fun. And if you want recaps, walkthroughs of specific escape rooms, we've got the Spoilers Club. That is one of my favorite shows to record because I get to really dig deep into these escape rooms, talk about how they're made, and just generally gush about what I loved about these wonderful experiences. Check out patreon.com/roomescapeartist for more details on our additional shows.
And a very big thank you to our highest level Patreon backers: Derek Tam, Breakout Games, Escaparium, Pat Dupin from Olivier Escape, Panic Room, Chris Laughlin, Rex Miller, Mark from Keystone Escape Games, Byron Delmonico, Karen, Kieran from Mystery Unfolds, and Andy Mincer. We truly appreciate your ongoing support. And finally, as we come around to the story at the end of the episode, if you have gotten this far and you have not yet left a 5-star review for us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go do so. It does so much to help signal to other people and to the algorithms that this show is worth listening to.
I have played all kinds of escape rooms throughout my days, and one of them was a crazy one that was played in Brooklyn, New York, and Jonathan was part of it. I don't even remember the name of it. It doesn't exist there anymore.
I remember it. It was called This Is Real.
In Red Hook?
Yep.
This is real.
Oh my gosh. What a disaster of a game. Proceed.
You start and you're masked, and then you wind up in these cages, and you're all next to each other, and you have to figure out your way out. And then throughout the escape room, you're told that some horrible person, monster, psychopath, I don't remember, is going to come bursting in, and you have to hide in some way. We didn't even know what that meant. And then if he catches you 3 times or something, you're out. These were the rules. We didn't quite know what it meant. And so Jonathan's there. And Jonathan, you have to finish the story because it was terrifying.
I should preface that this was, I think, my first escape room.
Oh, right. Nice.
Oh boy.
And so I go to this not knowing anything about anything. And immediately, they're having to like sign the crazy waiver before you walk into this of like, if you get injured or killed, and like, what is this? And Neil loves like haunted houses and things like that, but I didn't know if it was something like that or what we were getting into. And I remember they put a bag over your head and you're in this pitch black, and then they take the bag off your head, or take it off, and then you're in a cage. And in a metal cage. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is like a escape room. It's not like a real cage. It's not actually locked. No, it was actually locked, and I was actually locked in a real cage. And there's a crazy monster man that is coming into our room like every 3 to 4 minutes or something down the hallway, and you could hear his footsteps approaching. And then everyone like panics when the monster guy's coming because he's going to kill us. So you have to hide, and we're desperately trying to escape. So I didn't know the rules of the engagement here. So I was desperately trying to find a way out or escape this. We're looking behind the picture frames and couldn't find a way out.
Wouldn't you know there's a refrigerator?
You're in like an apartment. Yeah.
And Jonathan, in his stresses of like, where do I hide? He tried to move the refrigerator.
It wiggled. So it's clearly like a loose part of the game.
He used his adrenaline to rip off the mag locks that were holding the refrigerator. Because happens later in the game. It unlocks itself. But he very prematurely, like the Hulk, rips off the refrigerator maglock. And sure enough, there's like a crawl space underneath it. And so he's like, yay. So he ducks down and he's crawling back.
Yes, after we escape, I think they told us like that. We were like, are we the first? Are we the fastest? And they're like, yeah, you guys did a great job. And you finished it. But that's actually not our intended experience.
Maglocks be damned.